a very interesting segment coming up for all of us. We have a panel discussion, and we have some very experienced AMI trainers on our panel. First, I would like to introduce our first panelist, Ms. Vibhuti Jain. She is the trainer, she is the AMI trainer for the birth to 3 level. Sitting next to her, we have a dear friend of ours, another AMI trainer, Ms. Tina's reporter. I don't think I need to introduce her and tell you which group she's training for, right? All right. We also have Anne Dunn, who has been with us. Who has been supporting the elementary training in India for many years. And last but not the least, our Jenny. Jenny's right here. Who has braved the Indian conditions and has been staying with us in India for some time now. So, the discussion that the panelists are going to have is about the outdoor environment and how we can support the children in this outdoor environment. But before we go into this discussion, I'm going to ask you all if you all have any questions that you need to ask the panelists or need to address to the panelists. Please make a note of it. We have volunteers who are going to pass down pieces of paper for you to write down your questions. But at the moment, since we are a little behind schedule, I cannot promise whether we will be able to address all your questions today. If we have time, we will do so tomorrow. Otherwise, we will think of a way in which we can address your questions. Maybe perhaps something in the touch board might appear soon enough. So without any further waiting, let us start with our panel discussion. I would like to invite Vibhuti to share her thoughts on the outdoor environment.
Very good evening, everybody. I think the stage has been perfectly set by a wonderful presentation given by Chandani Chhabra. But we will still give our best in terms of our 4 planes, and I will begin regarding birth to 3. So the brain is forming its architecture in the first 2 to 3 years of life. The experiences in the outdoor environment are critical for the cognitive, emotional, and social development of the child. Dr. Montessori wrote in The Absorbent Mind, I quote, "Only through freedom and environmental experiences it is practically possible for human development to occur," I unquote. The Montessori environment needs to be prepared with love and care as an extension of the indoor environment, offering purposeful activities. The 2 main guidelines for outdoor activities are: first, activities appropriate to the space. For example, we can have window washing outdoors only if the environment allows for, otherwise not. The second guideline is activities provided by climate. For example, we can have snow shoveling in cold climates and leaf raking in autumn, etc. The outdoor environment must not merely be a playground, but enable the child to form a deep connection with nature. Dr. Montessori said, and I quote, The land is where our roots are. Children must be taught to feel and live in harmony with the earth. So, the activities in the outdoor environment can be broadly categorized into three parts. The first one being taking care of outdoor environment like raking leaves, sweeping sidewalks, cleaning and scrubbing play equipment, watering plants, gardening, and collaborating in making compost, taking care of animals, and so on. And we had a fabulous presentation before with more details. The second kind of activity could be to observe nature. And this could look like children spending time with nature. Right? Children looking through a magnifying glass, watching birds take a bath and feeding them, smelling herbs and flowers, gathering fruits and vegetables, etc. Just hanging out in nature. And the third one is possibility of gross motor movements like rolling up and down natural landscapes, climbing, running, and meandering around obstacles and creating really natural landscapes. Thank you. Thus, one is only limited by one's own creativity in what one can create to allow the child to interact with nature. The adult then needs to ensure safe explorations and themselves be enthusiastic to explore the outdoors with awe and wonder. Adult needs to role model how to preserve and protect nature. Thus, by preparing ourselves in the outdoor environment, we can gift the child the joy of connecting with nature. And we hope that this early connection with nature helps the child not only coexist, but also protect and preserve nature and hopefully reverse climate change, thus building a healthier and harmonious world. Thank you.
Thank you, Vibhuti, for sharing your thoughts. Tinas, could I invite you to share your thoughts on the same topic?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And just looking at the audience here, nothing that I'm going to tell you is going to be brand new. And the very fact that we're here in the lap of nature speaks volumes of what we consider important in children's life and nature playing such a crucial role. But I think I'm just going to touch on a couple of points which are quite significant for us in our 3 to 6 work with the children. And the foremost that comes to my mind is that we actually don't have to do much. We know this child has this fabulous nature in the way his mind works. If he's around it, if people around him love it, if his life is full of it, and he gets an opportunity to interact with it, we know he's going to incarnate it. I think that term is quite a significant term, and Montessori uses it in her text, this incarnate, this idea of make mental flesh, that you can't leave it behind. It's going to be with you for the rest of your life. You don't have to be an environmentalist, that's not what I'm saying. You don't have to be a gardener, but that love for the world, the love for the world that we live with, that can stay as an indelible part of that child's life. We understand that, we really do understand that, and many schools really go out of their way to create some fabulous environments. In their limited spaces, they create some beautiful spaces for children. Those who have the luxury for larger spaces create some lovely spaces for children. But unfortunately, what happens sometimes is after we create these beautiful spaces, we defend these spaces from the children for whom we created them. So we don't want them to touch the flowers, we don't want them to go near the pond, we don't want them to, you know, be close to it because the beauty will get lost. But the very fact that we created it for them to be in the midst of beauty is important. But just being in the midst of beauty is not going to be something that's going to last forever. It's not. We cannot look at it and say, wow, that's fabulous, but after some time, it's not going to do anything. If our children don't have the opportunity to interact, to really connect, and that can only happen through the work of their hands, we know that. Their hands are the only way that connection is going to happen. And if they don't have an adult who can make that possible for them, to link, to connect, without prejudice, without bias, without imposing your personal views about it, if the children don't find that possibility to use their hands to interact, this incarnation is not going to happen. And it's this hand and that work that will feed the spirit. That spirit in turn will propel the body to find out more, and that body in turn will give the spirit the fulfillment. And we're in that cycle of what Manjari talks about, body and spirit, body and mind. And that's something we must consider in our work with the children. I understand we are consumed by safety, absolutely. And you know, we saw that, we feel it ourselves as teachers. I would be lying if I said I wasn't afraid when the children were out playing and we had a very wooded area, and I wouldn't, you know, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned. But it comes from knowledge, it comes from knowing how to create safe spaces, how to help children interact with their spaces safely, how to equip them to move around in their spaces. And that's very important for them to be safe in their spaces. Telling them is not going to work, and especially with our children, it's not going to work. You have to do this, and you know, sometimes we sit in a large circle and we're doing this circle time and we say flowers are precious and bees need their flowers. Telling them this is not going to work for them unless they're out there washing the bird feeder, unless they're out there taking the weeds out of the plant, unless they're out there cleaning the space we've created for the animals in our spaces. Unless they're out there doing that, it's not going to work for them. Recently, I was reading The Discovery, and there's a chapter on nature in that book. It's a fascinating chapter to read. But one of the things that caught my attention in that chapter was this idea of limitation. I never thought of it with the outdoors. I understand it inside the prepared environment. We talk about, you know, just necessary, sufficient, no clutter, and that the limits are necessary for the child's mind, for the intelligence he's building, and it's just enough. And we say this a lot, right? How much should you give? Just enough, not too much, not too little. And the same holds for the outdoor environment. You don't have to go out of your way. It doesn't have to be vast pieces of land and vast spaces. It's just enough that they can physically find their space, physically orient, physically explore it, and just enough that they can mentally understand their space and connect with it. And that is a very important aspect even in our outdoors. I've been looking recently at a lot of human tendencies and interconnectedness, and we heard a lot from the morning, we heard a lot after tea break,